My name is Jake, and last spring I accidentally dyed my roommate's teeth ocean blue 2 hours. Before he had to present to our company's CEO, he walked into that glass-walled boardroom, smiling like he'd already gotten the promotion. And the truly ridiculous part, I'm the one who caused it. And for about 90 agonizing minutes, I wasn't sure I'd ever admit it. If you've ever lived with someone who treats the shared fridge like their personal buffet, you already know exactly where this is going. Tell me in the comments about the worst thing a roommate or sibling ever stole from you. I read every single one. By the way, quick side note, while I tell you how this whole disaster unfolded, I'm sketching a pretty ridiculous drawing in the background. I hope you enjoy watching my weird art skills come to life. Mark is the kind of guy who can make you laugh and want to strangle him in the same sentence. He's charming, he's hilarious in meetings, and he has never once admitted to anything in his life. Not spilling coffee on the printer, not borrowing my phone charger for 8 months, and definitely not eating my lunch. So when half our office watched him grin like a lottery winner in front of the CEO with a mouth the color of a popsicle, nobody was more confused or more delighted than me. To understand how a pan of brownies turned into a company legend, you have to rewind 3 days to the exact moment my patience finally snapped. Mark and I had been roommates since college, which is really just a fancy way of saying we'd been rating each other's snacks for 6 years. We even worked at the same marketing firm and carpooled together, which meant Mark had 2 chances a day to steal my food, once at the apartment and once at the office fridge on the 3rd floor. He had a gift for looking genuinely wounded whenever I asked if he'd seen my leftovers. "Jake, I would never," he'd say, chewing suspiciously close to my missing container. The final straw was a turkey club I'd actually paid for, from the good deli downtown. I labeled it in Sharpie, block letters, underlined twice. "Gone by lunch." Mark blinked at me over his keyboard and said, "Weird. Maybe you ate it and forgot," which is the exact kind of gaslighting that turns a reasonable man into a brownie-based vigilante. That night I called my mom, mostly to vent. She let me complain for exactly 90 seconds before cutting in with her go-to solution for every crisis. "Just bake something, sweetheart. You always think better with flour on your hands." She meant it as comfort food therapy. I heard it as strategy. While I dug through the pantry for her fudge brownie recipe, I remembered something far more useful. My sister Priya, who works in HR 2 floors above our office, still had a nearly full, industrial-sized bottle of ultra-concentrated blue food coloring left over from her son's dinosaur-themed birthday cake. She'd used exactly 4 drops for a swamp green frosting disaster and had a lifetime supply left over. Totally harmless. Wildly, hilariously strong. I want to be clear that nothing about this was dangerous. It was food coloring, the same stuff in blue raspberry candy and slushies, just a lot more of it. I told myself I was only testing a theory. I was also very obviously plotting a crime against Mark's dignity. I baked a full batch of my mom's fudge brownies, and instead of the 1 drop of blue the recipe called for, I added roughly the amount used to dye a swimming pool. They came out looking perfectly normal, rich and chocolatey, betraying absolutely nothing. I labeled the container Jake's, "Do not touch," in the same block Sharpa letters, because by this point it was basically a formality. I left them in the office fridge Thursday morning and told exactly one person my plan, Priya, who laughed so hard she nearly dropped her coffee and swore on our grandmother's grave she wouldn't say a word. She almost broke that promise within the hour. I didn't realize one overexcited group text from Priya would nearly blow the whole plan before lunch. Thrilled by the drama, she casually mentioned to 3 separate coworkers that something big was happening in the break room that day. By 10 a.m., half the marketing floor was suspiciously interested in the fridge. The near disaster came at 11:15, when Deb from accounting, who eats lunch approximately 4 minutes after arriving anywhere, reached for my container thinking it was the office-wide potluck tray. I nearly tackled her over a stapler. "Personal brownies," I said, a little too forcefully, sliding the container back 6 inches. Deb blinked, shrugged, and walked off with somebody else's yogurt instead. Crisis avoided. For now. At 11:40, I watched Mark stroll into the break room, spot my container, glance both ways like a raccoon checking for headlights, and vanish 2 brownies into a napkin. He caught my eye on his way out and had the audacity to wink. At the time, I thought watching him meet my brownies was the most satisfying part of my entire week. I was very wrong. Here's the detail I didn't know yet. Mark's big client presentation, the one he'd been rehearsing in the bathroom mirror for a week, had just gotten moved up. Instead of 4 o'clock, he now had exactly 2 hours to prep, which happened to be exactly enough time for concentrated blue dye to fully set into tooth enamel. At 1:45, my phone buzzed, and my stomach dropped before I even read the message. It was Priya. "Come to the big conference room," it said. "Now, bring popcorn energy." I speed walked upstairs and found half the office already crowded outside the glass wall, phones out, shoulders shaking with silent laughter. Inside, Mark stood at the head of the table, clicker in hand mid-sentence, blissfully unaware that his smile had gone full smuff. The CEO, Mr. Halloran, a man famous for never once smiling during a quarterly review, went dead still. Then his shoulders started shaking. Then he lost it entirely, laughing so hard he had to take off his glasses. The whole boardroom followed, and Mark just stood there, grinning wider in confusion, which of course made everything worse, because every grin revealed more blue. Someone finally held up a phone camera. Mark looked at his own reflection, went pale, then bright red, then, unable to help it, started laughing too. He found me in the hallway 4 minutes later, teeth still faintly turquoise. "You get exactly 1 guess," I told him, hands up in surrender. "The Turkey Club," he said immediately. Not a question. I nodded. He stared at me for 1 long, dangerous second, and then started laughing so hard he had to lean against the wall. "I deserve that," he admitted. "I have never once told you the truth about that fridge." "I know," I said. "That's why I switched to brownies. Higher stakes." Mr. Halloran actually pulled Mark aside before he left that day, still grinning, and told him it was the best presentation he'd sat through all year, blue teeth included. He started calling him Bluetooth on the spot, and it stuck instantly. Half the office still uses it, always with genuine affection. That night, Mark ordered pizza, set my slice on a clean plate with an actual napkin underneath it, and slid it across the counter like a peace offering. "Truce," he said. "Also, teach me your mom's brownie recipe, minus the food coloring. I want revenge brownies of my own someday." When I finally told my mom the whole story, she went quiet for a second, then laughed so hard she had to sit down. "I taught you that recipe for potlucks," she said, "not warfare." Then she made me promise to tell the whole thing at Thanksgiving twice. He never touched my lunch again. Not once. If anything, he started leaving sticky notes on his own snacks that said things like, "Not Jake's, but nice try," which somehow became the funniest inside joke in our entire apartment. Has anything like that ever happened in your family or your apartment? A harmless joke that spiraled a little further than you planned? I'd love to hear about it in the comments. Looking back, none of us can say for sure whether Mr. Halloran ever learned Mark's actual first name. But 3 years later, at Mark's wedding, his best man opened the toast with, "For those who don't know, everyone here calls him Bluetooth," and the whole room, CEO included, laughed exactly as hard as they did on that very first day.